Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. I'm Kelsey Aida, one of your co-hosts. I'm here with Lynnsey Robinson, one of my besties and a hypnotherapist. And today we have an awesome guest. Her name is Christina Gutierrez, and she is a Latina licensed therapist, healer, and author. And I have to say, I'm extra excited to have you on the show because Latinas unite! Woo! Thanks for being here, Christine. Tell us a little bit about what you do and kind of how you got into this work. So if anyone doesn't know you and they're listening, they can be introduced to your world.
Yeah, so I like to say that from the earliest times I can remember, I've always had some sort of connection to human suffering and wanting to alleviate that suffering. And I remember being a little girl and growing up in Bushwick in Brooklyn and walking down the streets with my mom and begging her to speak to homeless people and ask them their story and really just give them comfort. I remember specifically making eye contact with anyone that I saw that was marginalized and remembering knowing that just looking at them with love would give them some sort of feeling that they're not alone. And so ever since that kind of soul purpose was planted in me, I kept on following that inner call to help. And inevitably I went through my own kinds of suffering that combines with that inner soul call to heal, to help alleviate suffering. I also went on my own journey to heal all the pain that was within me. And that really led me on this path to becoming a therapist, a healer, and now an author.
Yeah, and by the way, your book is so beautiful, and I haven't had time to dive into it yet, but when I got it in the mail, I was very excited. We'll definitely talk more about that later. It's called I Am Diosa, which means I am goddess, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So we'll dive into that in a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about how your healing ties into the therapy, which ties into the writing, and how it all kind of flows together, because I know how it flows together for me, but I love to hear like how it comes together for others.
Yeah, so for me, there is no separation between my therapy work and my spiritual work. And in the book, there's a line that I included that says the study of the soul is the actual meaning of the word psychology. It's not the study of the mind, it's the study of the soul. And so for me, when I did my clinical studies and I did the whole shebang and became a licensed therapist, uh, I realized that there was something missing. And I was working with people that had gone through trauma, abuse, as a family therapist at the time. And particularly with POC communities, persons of color, Latinx, Black, Indigenous, and most of these people were people that were really connected to some sort of spirituality of their own understanding. And I found that there was a missing bridge of communication between this kind of more clinical, sterile, cold, almost in some ways, form of traditional talk therapy. And it really wasn't working as effectively. And when I started to incorporate more mindfulness-based techniques and somatic practices, helping people to get in touch with their body, their energy, bringing in these healing tools, I saw shifts happen. And people really responded well. And I believe that that's because of the energy, the warmth, the love. And so for me, when I realized that, I thought, this is therapy. It's just something that hasn't been maybe accepted by mainstream psychotherapy. And who's in charge of mainstream psychotherapy, right? These like white male kind of perspectives that have
It's always the white man.
I know.
It really is. It really is.
And like, here's the deal, right? We've learned some things that we needed to take from it. And, because we're all impacted by that. And I too, I've learned, from Carl Jung and, Freud and all these theories, but I had to do work to also decolonize my perspective on therapy and on spirituality and really give it the holiness and the sacredness that it deserves. That who's to say that because it wasn't taken into these case studies in this particular way that it wasn't actually therapy? It was. And so that for me was, I always felt that call to be that healer, that, whatever you want to call that bridge between the mundane world and the spirit world. And so then with that therapy practice, I was like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. This is what people need. And I'm happy to say that throughout these 10 plus years that I've been doing this work, people have had real results that last and faster results.
I love
Yeah.
that.
I want to rewind slightly and go into like your personal definition of therapy, because the way that I see it, therapy is a modality to heal or mend anything that is dysfunctional, whether that be like your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships. Would you say it's something similar to that, or do you have a different definition?
Absolutely. I think that's a great definition. And I think that when you are navigating kind of your inner emotional terrains, therapy gives you a safe space to do that. And hopefully, right, you work with someone that is validates your experience and all of who you are. So I think it's really important that we find therapists that really match our spirit, our vibe, and being really empowered in that decision making to find people that work for you, because this kind of old school version of therapy may not fit everyone, and that's okay.
I love that. And I find myself like now when I'm looking at like, I feel like I should have some sort of therapy on the side because I really don't. I don't have anybody that I can unload on, you know, and people like us, the healers and the people that are supposed to, that feel like they're supposed to be helping others. Rarely do we think, oh, maybe I should have someone too. Like, you know, you just don't think that.
1000%.
Well, exactly. And so now when I'm thinking about like, if I were to pick somebody, they would have to be spiritual. They would have to be connected to like the woo stuff. I can't have somebody that's rigid and like, let's talk about your Freudian slips or whatever. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I
And
just
it's
can't do
important
it.
that, like to know that. And absolutely, I recommend that, you know, that everyone finds a way to get therapy. And there are many different options, free options and low cost options. And it's especially important for those of us that consider ourselves healers or, you know, change makers or leaders, because we also, most of us get into this work because we've gone through some dark night of the soul ourselves. We have our own pains, and we're really sensitive, really, really sensitive humans. And especially right now with all the things going on in the world, we need that place to have someone hold us in a strong container so that we can unload and also process and ground, and then be able to come back even stronger. I have my own therapist. I love it. Anything that I offer to people, I do myself. And it took me a long time to get there, because there were many times where I was doing the complete opposite. But I know now that that's like a 101 for my mental, emotional, and spiritual care. I need it.
Totally. Yeah.
We love therapy. We tell people every week on our show to go check out BetterHelp because they're one of our sponsors, and we believe in therapy, and you can get matched with the professional there that you love. But I'm sure we'll get into that commercial break later. You guys will hear it, and we'll give you a coupon code, so stay tuned. If she's talking about
Listen up.
more affordable ways to do therapy, that's definitely one of them. But yeah, I've found therapy invaluable in my healing journey, and also like in my journey of manifestation, because a lot of times when you're wanting certain dreams to come to fruition, the only thing that's stopping and holding you back is your own personal dysfunction or your traumas or unhealed, unresolved things going on inside of you that you might not even know. And that's where the shadow work comes in, where you dive into things that have been buried or shoved away in the back attic of your mind, or things you didn't want to look at because they were so painful. But when you can start to address those and give loving attention to them, it's crazy like how fast you can create resolve, and then energy starts flowing much more freely.
Absolutely. In I Am Diosa, the book, the subtitle is A Journey to Healing Deep, Loving Yourself, and Coming Back Home to Soul. And really, it takes you on that process. And we start at the root always. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Like looking at those deep emotional wounds and loving them up and nurturing them, and listening to how they speak and how they move in your life, and how they choose, what kind of partners they choose, and what kind of choices they choose, and what kind of thoughts they choose, and really nurture them so that they can heal just like any wound would heal, right? Just like any physical wound would heal, there's a process to that. And we need to learn to tend to that part of us just the same way we would if we were bleeding, right? Because our emotional wounds bleed just the same. And when we do that, on the other side of that are changes. And that's the thing about this work. I always say, like, this is really hard work. It's grueling work. It can be really, really take you to your knees, you know, and like break your heart open so many times. But there is hope on the other side of that. And the hope is that as you look at those places, you can rework and bring awareness and then change what doesn't work for you. Some of them are going to stick longer than others, and that's okay. You keep coming back to them. There's some that are more, you know, deeply stuck and ingrained in your nervous system that take a little bit more loving, or a lot more loving in my case. But then there's others that fall away. And when you start collecting that data that says to your brain, okay, as I start to change these patterns and do these things, look, my life gets better. Look, my relationships get better. Look, most importantly, I trust myself more. Like, you start to regain a sense of relationship with yourself and your soul. And so often we abandon ourselves when we've gone through traumatizing or painful experiences even. And so this is all about, you know, let me do the heavy work so that I can access my strength, my power, trust myself, and start choosing better choices.
Amazing. That was really eloquently said. I'm excited to read your book.
I know. I have a quick thing about the book. So when I got it, I was so excited. I was like, I know what this is. I know what this is. And I opened it, and I actually got to read the first couple pages, but my son saw it and he goes, Mommy, Christine Gutierrez, she has my name. All my kids are Gutierrez. My husband's a Gutierrez. I'm legally a Gutierrez. So samesies. But he was so excited to see his name on the book. I don't think he sees it. I mean, we don't see that name that often. And so when he saw that, he got like so excited. It was adorable. So thank you for showing my son that his name could be on a book. It's so cute.
That makes me like so happy. That is it. And that is a big part of, you know, being a Latina author, and my name Gutierrez, and just being able to stand in that also and own that and have that be there is really important and beautiful. And also I pray that beyond the medicine in the book and the tools that people get, that I also stand as a symbol for people so that they can know they can do it too. So things like that, where it's like your son saw his name, right? Because representation matters, and people's voices matter, and people's accents matter, and people's culture matters. And so all of those things, I definitely know that this will be, I have already started to hook up other people, particularly, you know, women of color, but I believe that this is going to be a big gateway into other people getting solid, abundant book deals with, you know, top publishing houses, because that was a big deal for me to own and celebrate and be like, yeah, girl, you did that, you know, like this is a big deal. And I hope that other people get inspired to know that they can do it too.
I love it. That's so cute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big project to write a book. So.
Oh yeah.
Applause.
Guys, it's on my bucket list. And the more we have a guest on that has a book, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? It's been on my bucket list forever. And I'm just running out
You're
of
meant to write it then, you know. And
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things, you know, that just keeps coming up. When I first started doing hypnotherapy, I was like, I'm going to have a book. Like, that was my objective. And then it kind of fell away. But you guys are very inspiring. Kelsey's got 2. Like, what am I doing with my life?
It's in its own.
And working on a third?
Yeah, it is in its own divine timing, honestly, because every time I've felt inspired to do a book, it's like I have to start writing it in that moment. Like, you have that feeling like I can't do anything else except this thing right now. And then, you know, there's phases of coming back to it and taking a pause and going back into your life to learn more for the book, and then coming back to the book, and then editing and getting it all together.
Lynnsey, right? You have a real human baby, right? Like a son.
I have 3 sons.
Yeah, 3. Okay. Well,
a human being.
Yeah, you have humans, right?
I do have humans.
But also there's a different birthing process for everyone, right? And sometimes it's birthing humans, sometimes it's birthing businesses, and we can do it all. We know that, right? We have many powerful examples of that now. But I do believe that everything has its timing, and if you feel that call, definitely. My dear friend Juliet Diaz and she's also an author. She's signed with Hay House. I'm signed with Penguin Random House. And she and I started this program called the Soul Book Masterclass. And we actually started it. It's a 1-year journey. And it's for people that want to birth their book. Why? Because people need that accountability. People need to know how to write the proposal, that you don't have to write the whole book to get the book deal. In fact, you don't do that if it's in the nonfiction genre. You just write a really amazing book proposal, get a book agent, and they pitch the book. So all of those things are important. And I think I also signed up for things like that to help keep me accountable, because sometimes we need that kind of container to actually stay on track with what it is we need to do. We all need that help. Just like in therapy, we need it in business as well.
I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, Kelsey.
I was muted. Great tidbit for anyone who wants to write a book, which I'm sure a lot of people listening to this specific episode have that in mind. Otherwise, this conversation would probably not come up.
She's the woman to go to. So is there a place people can check that program out if they're interested? Like, do you?
Yeah. It starts in September, but if they sign up a little bit afterwards, they can still get access because everything will be recorded. So it's www.thesoulbook.co.
So soulbook.co. I love it.
I'll put that in the description too, so you guys can click it really easy. Can we circle back around to how therapy can make your life better, in the sense that when you heal and tend to the inside, things can start flowing and you'll see results in your life? Because I have a really epic story about this, which I can share next. But do you have any cool stories, maybe recent ones of clients or maybe even yourself, of where your outer reality was obviously showing you that there's something not working here, so you're like, okay, let's tend to this, and then you did, and then it shifted?
Yeah. So, and we'll keep therapy to mean, for the sake of this conversation, anything that brings you to healing. And so with that, even in the book, I share this beautiful story about one of my clients that she was addicted to this toxic relationship, would keep going back, and also had a history from her childhood of having a very emotionally abusive father that just really had high expectations of her constantly. And her internalized message of that was, I can never do enough. I'm never good enough. I'm not lovable enough. And so that downloaded kind of blueprint on how love looked and felt carried on into her teen years, carried on into her adult years. And so when she was out there, her picker for these relationships was off, right? Because it was still registering some of those unhealthy patterns from childhood. And so through our work together, she was able to go through this process of being able to connect the dots and really bring deeper awareness, and then have tools, whether it was breath work, whether it was having journaling exercises, whether it was having energy work, whether it was her doing rituals, but essentially what I call pattern interrupters, anything between you and those negative choices, those behaviors. And it wasn't like this linear path, right? She would slip up. I call this the relapse pattern. It's super normal in healing. No one has to get scared if they slip up. Getting back on track, I have a formula in the book, the Get Back on Track formula, that really breaks down how relapse and slipping up is also part of the process. And so she went on this process, and she slowly started to see that she was regaining her energy back. Every time she was doing these things, literally imagining light coming back into her body. Every single time her vessel was like regaining, okay, I do got a little bit more power. Okay, cool. It's like, a video game of sorts, right? Video game of life. And she was noticing that as she started to prioritize her needs, and instead of seeking external validation, she was gaining her validation from source, from divine, from herself, from the healing container of our sessions. And she slowly began to see that she was worthy of more, set better boundaries, walked away from the relationship, and ultimately now has her own practice of helping other people heal. She does self-love retreats. She is totally embodied in herself. And it's amazing to see. This is not like one story, right? This is like many of the diosas that I've worked with that have been in these really shitty dynamics, mostly relationship stuff that comes up, but also careers that don't serve them. And really taking the time to see, where did this idea come from? Where did this seed of unworthiness come from? Where are the thorns in the timeline of my life? How can I go back fuck them, heal them, navigate them, and really start to practice what it would be like to walk closer to the version of you that you're meant to be. And it's incredible. And I mean, obviously for my own life, I have, gotten sober and many deaths and rebirths over and over and over again. But my life changed. I was attracted to, I dated drug dealers who were like, the worst of the worst. Like if it was like the worst one in the room, I would close my eyes and like put my finger out and I would find him. It's magical, I would pick him because my subconscious was trying to recreate those earlier childhood patterns of abuse. So I had to go deep and solve it. And when I started to, my relationships got better. Right now, my partner is just absolutely a manifestation of my inner work. It's not always perfect, but he is a testament to doing his own inner work. And even my prior relationship to him was a really healthy relationship. It wasn't a fit. It wasn't what I wanted for my whole kind of journey. I didn't feel that he had enough power to hold the vision of the life that I wanted. But it was a healthy relationship. And again, that happened because I did the inner work. And so for those of you that are in the darkness now and kind of playing out those patterns, know that it's okay. Know that as you do this work, as you go through this book, as you take the steps to work with the people you're guided to work through, changes happen on the inside and then happen also on the outside.
Yes, my example that I was going to give is very similar because before the relationship that I was in now, and I notice with the women around me, like the relationships are such huge mirrors, like you can't ignore that one when it's happening. So for me, I was in a really emotionally abusive relationship. And when I was looking into it and doing more work around it, I realized that in a lot of ways, he was showing me how different parts of me treat myself. So where I was super hypercritical of myself, he would be super hypercritical and judgy of me. And where I would feel like I wasn't doing enough, he would reflect that back to me and, oh, you're not doing enough. And all this stuff that was going on inside of me, it didn't really tie so much to childhood, but it was like my inner dynamic with myself was being played out in this relationship. And so when that ended, thank you, universe, for sparing me from that. When that ended, I had to do so much healing work because I was very confused. I didn't understand. I was like, why did this happen to me? Why do I still love this person who was horrible to me? This is weird. Like I shouldn't be in love with this person. And the whole time that I was doing this inner work, I just really focused on fixing my relationship with myself. Okay, let's see how my inner critic is. Why is she like that? What is she trying to help me to achieve? Is there a more healthy way to put her to good use so I don't just obliterate her altogether, but I give her something beneficial to do for me? Reassigning roles and things like that. And like now my partner is so crazy awesome. And like I was thinking about it the other day, like how thankful I was for him. But then I was like so fucking proud of myself because I was like, this is honestly just a reflection of my new relationship with myself, which is why I'm so passionate about teaching self-love and why we always say, like, if you want to attract your soulmate or manifest the love of your life, like start with yourself. Not that you have to be perfectly healed before you go into a relationship, but it is helpful to have a solid foundation with you first. And
Absolutely.
it's like insane. And now that's really cool, your client that you were talking about, because she hosts self-love retreats and so do I. And so I feel like we're kind of on this cool little path together. So that's great.
And
Weird.
that you were able to, to recognize that within yourself, right? And it doesn't only have to be childhood. It can also be how we treat ourselves, right? And also recognizing, and I say this in my book, there's like a funny little line that I put, but a very important line where I say, sometimes, yes, sometimes in your situation, right, it was this inner kind of critic that was coming up. And sometimes the light attracts moths. And so they could have nothing to do with how you treat yourself, or how it could be that, maybe the lesson is your light will attract many people. And the example that I give is that, sometimes you could be walking down the street in New York, right? And you could be doing your thing and totally fine, but just the law of just like life and probability, you're going to have some crazy people along the way. And sometimes your light can attract that.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that, it's coming from you. A lot of times I'll see a lot of clients that are saying, well, maybe there's some part of me. And it's like, no, it can also be that sometimes the person is just not good, and that you need to learn to just say no, right? Instead of going so deep down that cycle of like, what is it in me? What is in me? And sometimes it's just very simple, right? It's like, you don't have to accept everything that comes our way, and not in your situation at all, but for those people that are listening that might be, wondering and putting the blame on themselves. Sometimes people are just assholes. Sometimes people are just crazy. Sometimes people are just a bitch and you don't like them because your gut is telling you that they're not good for you. It's not always some unhealed part of us, right? Like sometimes, you can have a feeling when you meet someone, you're like something's off. I don't trust them. And that can be your intuition. And I only say that to give people context there's so many different ways to heal. And especially with the spiritual lexicon that's so heavily focused on, it must be within you. It must be within you. Sometimes it ain't within you, boo.
That's true.
People are,
That's going to be the quote for the episode. Sometimes it's within you, boo.
Yeah, because it's true. Because I feel like if you can't see it very obviously, then that's probably not what it is. Because like for me, I was like, oh, this is exactly how I treat myself. Like, duh. But if you're like trying to dig for it and nothing's coming up, like it's probably just not that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love it. Hey there, thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to watch the extended version where you get the full podcast episode in a video format, just go to patreon.com/highvibe. The link is in the description. That's where you can become a supporter of the show, listen to all the episodes via video format, and each week you get extended versions of the show, meaning you get to see the pregame behind the scenes, and also you get an extended interview with whoever we're guesting, or if it's me and Lynnsey, we usually pull cards for you guys, fun stuff like that. So go check it out. There's lots of cool goodies, including a free copy of my book, a free audio hypnosis from Lynnsey. She's a hypnotherapist. And yeah, we just want to give you all the goods, all the content. So head over to patreon.com/highvibe to become a Patreon.
Or if you'd rather listen to the rest of this episode, head over to highvibinit.com where you'll see all the links to everywhere that it's getting streamed. Click your favorite one and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.